We had gotten contacted the night before the Purdue game, which would have been, what was it, Tuesday night maybe, that there was a conflict, I believe, between, I guess it was between Kentucky and UCLA on maybe some testing protocols. And I think they were looking to align maybe us with more similar, given the fact that the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are more similarly aligned. That's about all I heard of it. They asked if we'd be open to it. Roy and I talked the next morning when we were getting tested at Purdue, COVID testing at Purdue. He reached out and, because I said I wanted to talk to Roy first and see if he was on board with it. So he and I talked for about 15 minutes and both agreed to be okay with it if it was going to keep the event intact. And that was really what happened. So as far as how it affects things, obviously we have limited prep anyway. We were going to have a 1 day of prep for this opponent either way. Our staff had already done some work on North Carolina, so we were a little bit behind on preparing for UCLA, but it's certainly doable, especially given the fact that we were going to have limited prep time anyway.
Has Liddell's status changed at all?
We're going to evaluate him today in practice, Clay, and see. I do think he's making improvements in how he's feeling and his fatigue. I do think there's some improvement there for sure, but the final word will be once we see him, if he's able to practice at all.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, let's go next to Jared Smalley. Jared?
Hey, Chris, wanted to ask you about what you were just talking about, the short turnaround prep. Is it a little bit like a tournament situation where you basically get a day and could there be advantages to that? Not paralysis by over-analysis and just kind of playing freely as you want to run the things that you want to run.
Yeah, it's a good question, Jared, and there's certainly, I think, a part of that can be the case where it's, hey, listen, this is kind of where we're at, given the fact that we put our schedule compressed with Big Ten games. That's really what's changed things here, because we could have, in a normal schedule, we could have practiced yesterday, but we needed to give our guys a day off because of the quick turnaround also with Rutgers and then following Northwestern around Christmas. So, yeah, I think it's, in some ways, it frees guys up. You have to simplify your game plan for sure. And hopefully that'll allow our guys to kind of focus more on what we can do. We can't take away everything that UCLA does in a one day prep. They're a really good team, really well coached. I think they're going to have a great year. I know they were picked to win the Pac-12. They're really good. Been really impressed with them on tape. They had one slip up earlier in the year, I think their first game, but outside of that, now that they're at full strength, they're a really good team.
All right, let's go next to Patrick Murphy, 247.
Chris, this is the 7th year you guys have done this CBS Sports Classic, and I think you're 3-3. Just what do you generally take away from these games, in terms of playing another major out-of-conference opponent and whatnot? What are the takeaways from this, and what do you hope to get against UCLA?
Well, listen, it's a great event. It really is a great event. It's extremely well done. You're obviously playing you're playing three schools that have incredibly rich basketball tradition. And you're really playing three basketball blue bloods in the event. So it's unique in the sense that I think it's a great alignment for us. Obviously everybody understands our football pedigree, but I think it's a great event for us to be aligned with. It's also a great event to be able to challenge yourself, in a typical year before you get into league play or just after you've stepped into league play. So, last year our game on a neutral floor against Kentucky certainly moved us up a seed line or two. I think the caliber of opponent, we played last year and this year, and in our first year versus North Carolina, really, really does help you moving forward. All three of those teams were high NCAA tournament seeds. The one team that was a few years ago against UCLA, but this year's UCLA team will be an NCAA tournament team. The Kentucky was, and the North Carolina team was. So it's a good event. It's a really good game for us.
All right, we'll go next to Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now on SI.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good, Brendan. How are you?
Good, thanks. A couple things. One, what stood out most to you when you and your staff digest the Purdue film?
It was a lot of what we kind of thought initially after first seeing it live. I thought we did some really good things. We just didn't do enough good things, and I think our toughness in certain areas, offensively and defensively, has to improve. And when it was a 2-possession game, I did not feel like we played. We had very good offensive possession. So there's a couple of things we get along those lines. We got to clean up. But there was some good we took from it as well.
Can you give us, so that we can relay to other folks, an idea of how much prep time can go into, hey, we know we're playing this team 6 days from now or 5 days from now. I know this is a different situation, but in a normal run of the mill, hey, we're working ahead to make sure we've got a good scouting report, a good plan going into the first practice to get ready for that game. How much prep time typically goes into something like that?
It's hours. And in a perfect world, I think you have 2 to 3 days to prepare. I think after that, it can be a little much. Certainly if you have NCAA tournament games, first round opponents, you got a week to prepare. That you can really drill down on some facts there, or some game plan points. But I think it's our staff, myself, will watch. On one team, you'll watch anywhere between 20 to 30 hours of 20 to 25 hours of film, in prep, in meetings, in all that before you even present it to your team. So obviously, given the shorter turnaround here, we've had to compress that. We met this morning. We met yesterday. And we'll now present it to the team.
And then one more quick one. I don't know if we had a chance to ask you specifically about Musa. Can you evaluate his play on Wednesday night for us?
That was good. Yeah, I thought it was good. I thought his play was good. I thought he did a great job cutting off the ball. I thought he did a really good job rebounding. He made some defensive effort plays. He ran the floor, got out in transition. I thought he did a really good job for us.
Thank you. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Adam Jardy, Columbus Dispatch.
Hi, Chris. This is the first video conference you've done on a bus before?
Yeah, this is a first, Adam. This is a first.
As you look more at that Purdue game, I was thinking a little bit more about just the overall impact that maybe an EJ would have made in that game. And I know he plays a little bit undersized at times, but some of the things that you've talked about, the physicality and things, how do you think, in a hypothetical, he would have been able to impact that game for you?
I would have loved to see last year when we played Purdue, they trapped him and he struggled with it a little bit. And I think, struggled a little bit at times with how physical the game was. I think sophomore year, EJ would have handled that really well. And I really believe that. I think he certainly would have, when you lose a player of his caliber, it impacts your team. But listen, we did other things, and Purdue did other things to win the game. So I think all in all, I certainly think his impact would have been significant, but we had it right there in the last 4 minutes and just didn't respond again with enough toughness or necessary plays. But I do think him having played against their physicality one time through last year when we played him at home would have helped him prepare him for what he was going to face.
And then with Justice, I know he watched Big Ten play all last year, but this was his first real taste of it. And you talked a little bit about him afterward, but like, how ready do you think he was to jump in the Big Ten, and how much, even though he's been watching it and he played in a high level conference, how much is that going to be an adjustment for him as you guys? I know UCLA is not in the Big Ten, but going forward here.
Well, it's interesting because they play a really physical style of play as well, as you'd expect with mixed teams, as you had at Cincinnati. They play a really physical style of play, so it'll be a similar. But what you saw with Purdue is they really schemed defensively, as you'd expect they would, and as you mentioned, it was really, really physical. So I think his first taste of that kind of a game was a great learning experience for him. He's got to be stronger with the ball. He's got to continue to attack. He's got to play with more force. And then defensively, he's got to continue to improve. They played some long possessions, and we as a group have to be able to sustain our effort longer. And he certainly does. But I thought he did some really good things. I really did. I just think he's got a ways to go in that area.
Will Michi make the trip with you?
Yeah, Michi's going to travel. The only reason he did not travel before was he was getting a round of testing that he has to get. So that was the only reason why he wasn't on our previous trip to Purdue. He had all the testing that took place, but now he's got a good part of those out of the way, so he was able to come on this trip.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go next to Matt Goldman. Matt?
Hey, Coach. Just going off what Adam said about Justice in his first taste of Big Ten action, what did you think of Zed Keys' first start and also adjusting to higher competition than he was used to in the non-conference play?
I thought he played well. Yeah, I thought he played well. I think he rushes things a little bit when he gets an offensive rebound or a post up. He's got to slow down a little bit, take his time. But I thought his physicality, he defended Williams sometimes one-on-one. And I think what sometimes we don't fully appreciate is he's a strong kid. He's a young kid. He's our youngest player on our team, but he's a strong kid. And his wingspan allows him to really affect shots. So I thought he did a really nice job for us.
And just wondering, how did the players react to the news of no more North Carolina and now they had to play UCLA on such short notice?
I think they're excited to play. I think they were probably wondering. We talked about it after the game. I just explained how it went down, but they were excited to play North Carolina, UCLA, Kentucky, any of the three. Again, you're talking about certainly blue blood basketball programs. They were excited to play. So it wasn't a situation where they necessarily voiced any preference on one team over the other.
Thanks, Coach.
Sure.
Next up, Tim Hall, 97.1. Tim.
Hey, Chris, on top of on that, what you're just talking about, the guys being excited to play, did you see the kind of collective attitude and maybe, I don't know if anger is the right word, after letting the opportunity slip away against Purdue? Yeah,
they were certainly disappointed. Tim, I think they were clearly, it was a game that certainly we had chances. We were able to climb back again and put it within striking distance. But I certainly felt like that. We had to give them the day off yesterday, so we weren't around them yesterday. But it certainly felt like that after the game, as we all felt. But these are great. These are great learning experiences for us as a group, and that's what we've really tried to stress. If we can continue to learn and grow from an experience like that, and we'll continue. I've always said you don't fully know about your team until you go through rough stretches. And that happens in college basketball. It's different than in other sports where, you might only lose one game. In college basketball, it's just you're playing more games, you're going to lose more games. So until you go through rough stretches with your group, you don't fully understand, or I don't think you fully know what you have. So again, that was a small dose of adversity, and we've got to continue to figure out how to keep our focus on getting better and growing.
And last thing, I'm sorry if you were asked this sometime in the last week, but Coach K's comments on wondering, if we should be playing, and maybe just one more, you personally, do you think you're kind of where you thought you'd be, doing better than expected, considering you've only had one game postponed or canceled so far?
Yeah, I don't know that I do think I'm a little surprised that we've only had one game canceled, and that right now we've been able to play 6 of our 7 scheduled games. I think you're always optimistic, but at the same time, you do expect that there's going to be some interruptions. So as far as Coach K's, listen, I think when a guy like Coach K speaks, I think we should all take him at his word. He knows his team better than any of us do, and I think he understands that his representation of his team may be different than other teams across the country, but he certainly earned the right to speak regarding our game and the direction of our game. So, I appreciated his comments. I know our guys are excited to play and looking forward to playing and want to play.
Got time for a couple more. We'll go back to Clay Hall. Clay.
Coach, it appears to be pretty quiet on that bus. Are you getting your own private coach to Cleveland, or is the team coming later, or do you have other errands to run today?
Yeah. No, I certainly have not reached the status where I go solo on my own private bus. I hope I never reach that status, whatever that is, Clay. Listen, I think because of COVID protocols, we've divided up the bus.
Sure.
So we've got the 2 that we're taking up to Cleveland, and the one I'm on is guys are studying film or got their AirPods on, or I think we got a couple snoozing back there.
Thank you.
Sure.
Safe travel.
All righty.
Thanks, Clay.
Adam Jardy, Columbus Dispatch.
Chris, can you update just in general the health of everybody else? We touched on EJ, but just Ibrahim obviously missing the game, and Seth, and just where do you stand overall? I know Kyle had a boot on when he left the arena, but just where are you guys from a health standpoint?
The boot for Kyle is continued monitoring of his lower leg concerns, and he's had some ankle soreness, Adam. So that's where that's generated from. Just really trying to monitor that. He is sore at times in his lower legs after games, but that boot is just to monitor that. I think you'll see that throughout the year. Ibrahima is still dealing with the effects of his concussion, and we expect him to be returning at some point, but he's still recovering from that. Musa felt pretty well. I think Seth is making progress. Again, I can't tell you an exact timeline. I think it could be in a month, or it could be, in a couple days. It's just we're kind of take it game by game with how he feels after certain practices.
Thank you.
All right, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now SI.
Hey, Coach, I know you obviously mentioned you didn't have a ton of lead-up time here studying UCLA, but obviously Mick Cronin's Cincinnati Bearcat teams were basically teams that prided themselves on the defensive end of the floor, and they would succeed at a high level doing that. Did you see similarities here last year and maybe the beginning of this year to what he had done in Cincinnati?
Yeah, you really see the influence of Mick's personality on this UCLA team and this UCLA program. You see a level of togetherness in how they play offensively and defensively. A commitment on the defensive end, a commitment on the glass. You certainly see that. Again, they're a really good team. I think they have a chance to have a really good now that they've got the transfer from Kentucky who is back, and they've got a lot of returning faces. You can tell that in how they play. They've just got a lot of returning faces. But absolutely, you can see that with, obviously we played a few times. Our teams have competed against each other, both at Butler and here at Ohio State. And again, you can see the influence of he and his staff. They're really committed on both ends. They play together, and they're a skilled group, like his team.
All righty, we'll wrap it up with Tim Holt, 97.1. Tim.
Off the wall, Chris. Am I wrong? Had you guys worn suits yet on the sidelines this year?
No, we haven't. We have not, Timmy. And that was a conference call that came up, 2 months ago with the Big Ten coaches. It was among, the weekly calls we were having, and as you can imagine, those got real interesting and sometimes a little long. It's a great group of coaches, though, and we had dialogue about what we would all want to wear. So at that point, we changed and said, hey, we'll go with slacks and a casual attire since there aren't fans in the stands. For me, I'm a little bit more traditional. I probably would prefer a little bit more, maybe even more of a casual look, but a sport coat. So maybe at some point we'll go back to that this season. But I think most Big Ten coaches are going to stay with the polo and the slacks.
That was always a conference rule, like to wear suits?
No, it was an NCAA rule, but the conference going into this season, probably after watching the NBA bubble, just discussed, okay, hey, what are we going to do as a league? And certainly a team wants to wear suits, they can wear suits. But honestly, I've seen very few college basketball teams in suits right now. As a matter of fact, I've seen it, I think, in one game. I think the league just said, hey, let's be uniform in this as much as possible.
Yep. Comfort.
That's it. Yep, that's it. I think that you'll be hard pressed to have coaches vote against going back to suits for sure. But I may be the outlier in that.
Have a good one.
All righty,
guys.
everyone. Thank you very much for your time, and Coach, thank you very much for joining us.